So let's talk about personal finance and what you must do in times like these. We're going to go over a couple of subjects, that is specifically 5 of them, that I believe is critical for you to think about when it comes to organizing your personal finances moving forward. We have a huge crisis in our hands, and it's very critical that we start reimagining how we take care of expenses, how we save, as well as what are some of the things that we can do to improve our household conditions when it comes to budgeting. This is very critical, and I really don't talk about these type of things on a regular basis because I believe more on focusing on credit. But due to the situation that we're in and the dire need to go through these materials, I want to give you some insights on what you can do to properly organize yourself so that you get the best outcomes when it comes to your personal finances. And most importantly, what are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you can only improve your financial condition as well as your credit simultaneously so that you can reach the financial goals that you aspire to reach. I hope you stick around and watch until the end to get the most benefit. And my name is Ali Tarafter. I'm going to guide you through this process. If you're new to this channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, I talk about credit, personal wealth, as well as transforming your life financially for the better. If you're interested in joining me on my journey, don't forget to subscribe and turn the bell icon on so every time there's a video like these, you'll be first to be notified. Let's get you started on this topic right after the intro. So in today's topic, we're going to go over 5 things. Number 1, we're going to go over budgeting. I think this is a very critical component as to why and how things are going nowadays. And I think this is the most important part when it comes to moving forward with your finances. Not only that, I think it's critical for you to understand the system of how to budget properly. We're also going to talk about relocating your assets as our second point. This is a critical time and period of the economy and history right now with all these type of situations that are happening. And you know what I'm talking about. That you have to start thinking about asset allocation the proper way. Now, there's a lot of people who believe that this is high level talks. It's not, and I'm going to break it down to you step by step in a very simple way that you can think about asset management, because it's very critical at the end of the day for you to understand these type of things as well as to understand how to do it properly. We'll also, of course, talk about credit, which is all about this channel. Personal credit is ever so important, especially in times like these. So I'm going to give you some breakdown on what to do in order to make sure you get the best benefit of credit and how to use those systems to leverage your current situation. We're also going to talk about the future of money, where money is headed. What are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you're in the right when it comes to fixing and adjusting the way you think about money, as well as what are some of the things that you can do to get more of it and to maintain it even longer. And most importantly, the future of wealth, which is going to be our 5th and final point. The reason I want to talk about wealth is because a lot of people kind of undervalue the aspect of wealth and what is happening and the transition of wealth that's happening right now. Especially now is the most critical time to think about wealth and what are some of the things you can do to preserve your wealth, build it, as well as to grow it in the upcoming years to months. So let's get you started on point number 1, which is all about budgeting. Okay, so let's talk about budgeting. So budgeting is fairly simple. It's the question of looking at your household expenses and income, what you're bringing in, and what are you doing in terms of improving that. Now, there are certain situations that you have to understand with budgeting. For example, if you're basically spending on needs, essential stuff that you need on a daily basis, you can't necessarily go out there and cut up all these type of things to save money. This is very common sense, right? But at the end of the day, what are some of the things that you're doing to improve your budgeting situation? What are some of the things that you're doing to perform in a way that your budgeting is optimized for not only saving money, but being frugal, but at the same time, improving your household condition, improving your wealth standard, right? So some of the things, for example, in times like these, when you're isolating and when you're basically social distancing, one of the things that I'd like to look at is people's household expenses. I look at some of the things like, okay, television, all these type of things. They believe these are essential things, and they are for sure. But there are certain other things like subscription-based models and all these type of things that you can take a break on and resume when things are better. Netflix, for example, all these type of other services, because binge watching things and sitting down and chilling and just forgetting about the world is not going to help your situation. This is a time to step back and focus on yourself. This is a time to seriously think about some of the aspects of life when it comes to money, some of the aspects of life when it comes to wealth, as well as credit. Sitting back and ignoring everything else is not going to help you, and especially binge watching or going on subscriptions on a regular basis, hardcore on that, spending hours on it and just doing these type of things is definitely not going to help you. So what you want to do is focus on some of the things that you can cut down and prioritize basically improving your financial knowledge, improving some of the things that can help you move forward. And you don't have to do this by paying for subscription services. In fact, there's a lot of content out there that you can follow. There's a lot of articles that you can read about. Set yourself goals that you can achieve in a short period of time and just work towards that goal to help your situation so that you can improve your budgeting scenario. Another thing I also like to look at is the type of income you're bringing in. What are some of the things that you're doing to improve that household income? For instance, if you look at your income in the last couple of months, obviously if you're a standardized 9-to-5 job and you're doing a regular type of median job, you have to wait for the improvement in income based on your next upcoming raise, which is the time that you have to negotiate with your boss and so on and so forth. And what are some of the things that you can do to improve your income? But even at that, if you're working at a 9-to-5 job, you have situations that you can actually look into and discuss about, hey, what are some of the things that I can do to improve my income based on side hustle, things that you can do on the side that'll help you improve your income, some of the things that you can pick up on, skill sets that you have that you absolutely are passionate about, to monetize that skill set, to take that skill set on the table and say, I'm going to earn money based on this type of skill set. And what are some of the steps that you're taking, being that you have all this time in your hands now, to make sure that you follow a plan and you follow a blueprint to reach that goal that you're looking to reach in order to improve your income. So budgeting is not just a perspective of cutting down expenses and improving your income, but it's looking at the future and understanding what are the paths that you're going to follow, the blueprint that you're going to follow to stay consistent with following a proper budget, but also improving it over time and optimizing it so that you're satisfied about the things that you've achieved. So that was about budgeting. Now let's talk about some of the things that you can do to relocate your assets. So asset relocation is a very critical component of really looking at the economic whole and personal financial level. Asset relocation essentially means, what do you have right now sitting in a bank? What do you have in terms of asset, and what exactly are they doing for you? In times like these, in economic distress situations, when things are just going haywire, when things are all over the place, people are panicking, people are just super confused, stock markets are going down, and so on and so forth. What exactly and specifically are you doing to make sure that you're preserving your wealth, especially when it comes to your assets? See, a lot of people look at assets like, oh, I have something good, I can always sell it in later to make cash out of it. Or if I can just simply swap it for gold or cash or whatever the case, I have money in my hands. And that's true, that is a form of asset. But here's the biggest thing. Times like these, you want income producing assets. Times like these, you want assets that have a sense of appreciation over time. A lot of people cannot afford real estate at the get-go, especially when it comes to establishing a certain budget and being conservative. You can't spend all the money putting it towards a down payment, especially when you have to save for a rainy days. And if you look at the situation now, that is the rainy day. So what can you do to look at your current circumstances, look at your personal assets, and to improve it over time? What are some of the things that you can do? And let's assume that you don't have assets. So we're going to address that as well. The first thing is, if you have money sitting in a bank account, that's basically a depleted asset. The reason why, it's because inflation is something real. We have to think about the depreciating value of money. It is fiat currency as we know it. It's by the National Treasury Reserve. And unfortunately, that has no substantial value to it unless otherwise, we call it quantitative easing and all sorts of funky things that we can do to money to improve the condition of money. But let's assume that we're not talking about quantitative easing, or you're just simply looking at money sitting in a bank account and it's not really doing anything. The first thing you want to do is take that money out and you want to make sure that you can relocate it to a specific type of asset that's performing. Most of you guys will probably think, well, I can't afford real estate. I can't invest in real estate. It takes a lot of money for down payment and so on and so forth. That's true, but there are certain other things that are happening around you that you can look at in terms of improving yourself in terms of knowledge. That is a form of asset. You may believe it or not, but paying down some of your debts is also a form of asset, because what it is an asset of leverage. If you pay down your debts, what's going to happen is you have a huge leverage you're creating for yourself that is meaningful, that you can tap into resources in the future on a stronger basis. Because if you pay down your debts, getting qualified for more funding is an obvious statement, because especially if it's going to improve your credit score. So that you can do with the cash that you have going on. I'm not saying take all your cash and pay down your debts. Be equivalent to the balancing act, right? Make sure that whatever debts you're paying down, you have sufficient amount of cash as well to sustain yourself, and make sure that you're doing it in a very strategic way. So that's one form of way that you can take cash out of a bank and relocate some of the assets. Let's assume you don't have a lot of money saved up. What are some of the things that you have at home that you're not really using on a regular basis that has some sort of decent value to it? It's time to let go of some of the junk. It's time to let go of some of the things that you have sitting at home that you absolutely don't need to use, or on sorts of things like that, and basically start cashing it out. And the reason I say that is because at times like these, this is a time you have to really think about decluttering. If you declutter your space, if you declutter your home, if you declutter some of the things that are basically not really essential to you, it's going to help you save a little bit of money. Now, I'm not saying that you can't save a little bit of money, but it's not going to give you really a lot. The purpose is get used to decluttering, get used to identifying some of the things in an urgent situation, and what are some of the things you need need and what are some of the things you're comfortable letting go. So that's another way that you can relocate your assets. Another way, let's assume that you have a lot of money, you're sitting on assets like substantial income producing assets. Look at some of the things that you can do, especially if it comes to real estate, to help ease comfort in those people who are using your assets. For example, if they're renting from you, what are some of the things that you can do to mitigate some of the rent, especially in times like these, to make it more easy for those type of people? Because at the end of the day, it's about the long term, right? So if you kick people out of your residences because you're a landlord and nobody can afford your rent and so on and so forth, it's not really helping your asset situation. So look at some of the things in terms of easing economically into a situation where you're preferred as a person that there was, working with people, as well as the people that can comfortably come to you and look for solutions, and then using your assets and letting them basically leverage that tool. Another way to look at relocating assets outside of the things we just discussed, if you have tools and goods that people use on a regular basis and they're willing to rent it from you, it's an ideal time to rent out your equipment. There's a lot of things that you can do. For example, if you have camera gear, if you're a photography person, if you have computer, if you have all these type of things, you can start renting things out and basically earn income from that a little bit, because that's an asset relocation strategy that works really well. But of course, not everybody would be falling into that category. It's a very highly specific niche type of category. So that's another way that you can relocate your assets. Next up, we're going to talk about credit. I think it's one of the most important points. So let's get started with that one. So we're on our third point. We're talking about credit in terms of personal finances. Obviously, credit is so critical, especially in times like this. You need to leverage. You need to have tools that you can use and access and tap into in case of emergency. So if you haven't done so yet, start looking through my channel. I have a lot of videos that we talk about how to fix your personal credit, how to improve it, how to make sure that you qualify better when it comes to underwriting to get the funding that you're looking for. And if you're serious about that, then start going through some of the playlists that I've organized for you, which I'm going to link in the description of this video. Now, let's talk about credit. Why is it important for you to think about credit when it comes to your personal finances? Obviously, a lot of people believe that, having credit and stuff like that is kind of deteriorating your personal financial objectives. And that's not the truth. In fact, credit can actually be a good muscle for you if you know how to use it right. It's a lot of tools, especially when it comes to leveraging. And if you use credit the right way, you can efficiently organize your budget to basically build wealth and stack it over time. Credit doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. There's good debt and bad debt. There's a lot of concepts out there. We talk about that. But at the end of the day, you need to focus and prioritize on building and establishing solid credit so you can use that when it comes to building your wealth. And you have to know how to organize yourself around respecting the game of credit. You have to organize yourself around understanding how the credit system works and what are some of the things that you can do to take advantage of the situation. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out there and mess with the credit system and try to be, doing all types of great stuff. I'm saying take care of the credit system in a way that it's going to take care of you. If you respect the credit system, it's going to respect you. And it's very equivalent. The fact of the matter is credit system is going to probably respect you a lot more if you understand how to use it the proper way. So think about leveraging credit. Think about organizing your credit structures. Think about cleaning up your credit. Think about improving your credit. What are some of the things you can do about that? Well, let's talk about it. First, you can actually reach out to some of your credit card companies out there that you have. Start organizing around paying on time, making sure that you can leverage with them. Ask them if they can extend to you more credit at this time of need, and basically without a hard inquiry and all these type of things, you will qualify. There's a lot of people that is part of my students in the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery 2.0, as well as other things when it comes to mentoring, that they have gone through this process and have actually got limit increases. So think about communicating with your financial institutions and leveraging credit and getting those extended lines in case of emergencies. That's a critical component. Another thing I'd like to tell you is think about paying a little bit more than your minimum. Because of the new FICO 10 and the new FICO 10T models that are coming out, things are becoming a little bit more complicated and difficult. So always you want to have something that shows financial performance on your end when it comes to underwriting. You want to make sure that it shows that you're paying a little bit more than the standard minimum payment. You want to stand out from the crowd. This is the game of credit. You have to stand out from the crowd. You have to make your credit profile look credit worthy, and you have to make sure that it's super strong in terms of underwriting. So pay a little bit more than the minimum payment. Try to pay down your debts, the balances, improve your utilization ratio, which is essentially how much debt to the limit you have in comparison, as well as what are some of the things that you're doing to progressively improve your credit. Are you going back to some of the creditors after 6 to 12 months asking for limit increases? In the past couple of years, if you had one account, am I seeing gradual increases over time with that creditor, demonstrating confidence in your ability to borrow and pay on time? And especially if you're borrowing a little bit more every time and you have more limit increases every time, you're paying a little bit more than minimum payments every time, it demonstrates a gradual performance on your side in terms of being able to leverage credit and as well as borrow on a consumer snapshot standpoint. So I want you to think about credit that way. Improve it, get rid of those negatives, and enhance your credit report by doing all the tools and tactics that I just described. Let's talk about the future of money and what I believe is going to change quite a bit. So what is the future of money? So if you think about money right now, we know it's fiat currency and all these type of things, but I think the most important currency that you're going to have is your skill set, as well as some of the exchanges that you can make for that skill set. The future of money is not just about dollars. It's about credit. It's about budget. It's about assets, right? It's about understanding the system of how to improve your financial infrastructure overall, household-wise and personally. The future of money also means that you cannot really depend on stocks and bonds to give you the best outcomes. Now, I'm not a financial advisor registered under the US. I'm not a securities broker, so I'm just giving you that disclaimer. But at the end of the day, I'm also sharing the importance of understanding that going into the stock market or buying bonds and type of things like savings and all these type of things is not your best solution for money. Money needs to be worked in a performance level, which means that it can be allocated in a way that it's going to improve over time. It can be allocated in a way that it's spitting out cash flow and performing on a regular basis. And it has to perform better than the markets, meaning that if you look at yourself and you look at the standard of the markets, what are some of the rate of returns going out on the savings, some of the rate of returns with the S&P Standard & Poor's 500, all these type of things. And if you look at the overall situation, the type of use of money that you're putting out there, even if it's a slight few points, and if it's always beating the competitive market, if it's always beating saving structures and all these type of things, you're doing good. So you have to identify for yourself on a comfortable level based on your risk parameters. What I mean by that is, how comfortable are you losing the money, or how comfortable are you in terms of your comfort, and basically some of the compromises that you're willing to take for that money. So think about these type of structures when it comes to the future of money, especially for you. And I always emphasize on this, but I would say this very strongly, and I'm not an insurance broker or anything like that. I'm not registered. So again, full disclaimer, but think about insuring your life. Think about insuring the ones that you love, because at the end of the day, in these times, with all the situations that are going on, healthcare concerns and so on and so forth, you want to make sure that you are properly protected. And if that means that you have to put aside a couple of $100s every month, or $100 or $200 every month, then be it. But at the end of the day, it's important for you to think about that. The future of money also means that if you were to pass, God forbid, and something happens, what is your family left with? What exactly are they going to go through? Imagine yourself out of this world tomorrow. How is your family coping? How is your financial circumstances taken care of? All these type of things you have to think about. So that is the future of money. But more importantly, what are some of the infrastructures you're putting into place to outperform the markets right now? There's a lot of tools and resources. So I'm not going to go ahead and go over all these type of things, but it's up to you to do your research and be very frugal and conservative at the beginning. And once you're comfortable at that level, then you can start stacking it up, because you'll have more knowledge and expertise to make sure that you can do so. And then finally, we're going to talk about the future of wealth. What are some of the things that you can do to improve your overall wealth conditions? Let's get started. So the future of wealth, that's going to be our fifth and final point. So wealth is a lot of different things, right? So I think the most important thing when it comes to wealth is really organizing yourself to understand, hey, what am I doing with all the tools and resources when it comes to credit, personal income, finances, my family situation, all the type of relocation of assets and budgeting to make sure that I have a solid infrastructure. And what am I looking at? Wealth is about future prediction. It's about making sure that whatever you have is preserved, which is number one. You always want to be on the capital and wealth preservation side first, not about risk. Risk only comes when you're at a comfortable level where your income is so significant that if something were to go wrong tomorrow, within a couple of weeks, your wealth can be back to where it was. If not, and if it's going to take you years to save again to reach that point, then you're basically risking it. And that is not what we're talking about. So wealth preservation is very critical in these times, especially when you're starting out. If you're a middle-class person, or if you're just a working individual, you want to think about that. So if you have assets that you have sitting around, you want to get it to perform and you want to put it in a position, you want to make sure that you're always thinking in a mindset of capital preservation. How am I going to preserve my wealth? How am I going to preserve it so that it's not at risk? A lot of people do a lot of crazy things, but I think this is the time to really think about, sit back and say, what are some of the things that went wrong historically with other people's money? What are some of the things that I can look at, study from that? What can I do differently? It does require in-depth, a little bit research. It does require for you to sit back and really analyze. But at the end of the day, the only thing that can come out of that is you becoming more confident in your ability to structure and build wealth, a little bit more smoother than taking all that crazy risk and losing it, right? So think about these type of structures when it comes to building wealth. Understand where money is being lost. Understand what are some of the things that you can do to prevent that loss, because again, capital preservation, risk mitigation is very critical when it comes to building wealth. The next few things you want to think about is what are some of the things you already have? How can you take it to the next level? A little bit, a notch up, like 10%, 5% up. If you're making contributions on a regular basis to save, and certain high income producing assets, maybe think about upping that game or relocating your assets to up that game. Because at the end of the day, these are the tools that you have to depend on in the future to make sure that you and your family are taken care of. So that's how you have to think about wealth. Wealth is about the future. It's not about right now. What you have right now is on a capital preservation standpoint. It's about preserving your wealth now, but then improving it on a very risk-adjusted parameter. It means that you're basically looking at the future of wealth and basically readjusting as you go to make sure that whatever wealth you're building long-term is highly thought up, and basically you're analyzing every single step that you're taking to make sure that you're not losing the money. So with all that said and done, I hope that you guys got a whole holistic picture of personal finances. What are some of the things you need to do in times like these and the future? And hopefully you've got some education out of this, because I wanted to give this to you for a long time now, but I wanted to put it in a structure that's easy to understand, albeit that it's a very long video compared to the traditional videos that I do. I think it was very important that I shared these points with you. And if you felt that you were at this point in the video and you watched the whole thing, well, congratulations. And I hope that you take this information to heart and you apply it to your personal lives to make sure that you're doing well off for yourselves. With that said and done, if you haven't subscribed, and if you like this video, first, let's talk about that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share this video with those that you feel would benefit, and I'm sure that you can share it with a couple of friends and family that can benefit from the knowledge that we should share together and had a discussion on. If you haven't subscribed and you're new to this channel, you've been watching me for a while, consider subscribing. Turn that bell icon on. It'll help me grow this channel. And turn the notification on so that every time there's a video like these, you'll be first to be notified. With that said and done, leave a comment below and share what some of the things that you felt about our conversation today. What did you like about it? What are some of the things that you learned? So go ahead and leave a comment below so we can start a discussion. And with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafter. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.